Hi, my name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Innovation Showcase. The main purpose of this ongoing series is to inform viewers about exciting innovations and creative individuals across the fields of business, science, technology, education, and the arts. Today, via Zoom, we're fortunate to have as our guest Carla Grace. Based in Adelaide, South Australia, Carla is a highly accomplished wildlife artist who has won many awards for her realistic acrylic paintings and has been featured in art exhibitions worldwide. During the program, we're learning why and how Carla's interest in wildlife painting came about. We'll view and discuss some of her stunning artwork, and in the process, come to better understand and appreciate how she goes about creating her unique and extremely captivating paintings. Let's start by meeting Carla and then hear all about as well as enjoy some of her outstanding artistry. Welcome, Carla. So delighted you're able to be here.
Thank you, Jay. It's an honor to be invited. Thank you for having me.
you know, so eager to hear more about your work, view it, have you inform viewers. So to that end, would you please start by sharing a little bit about your background and how you became interested in painting at the first place?
Well, I am originally from Africa, so my core love for wildlife comes from a childhood in Zimbabwe, where we were very lucky to be around a lot of animals before things got a little bit tricky and wildlife started to, see a little bit of a sadder ending. But we were very lucky in the 90s to have that very rich engagement with wildlife in Zimbabwe. And that's where that wildlife passion comes in. Now, the art is something that has just always been stuck to me. And my grandma on my mum's side is an incredible wildlife painter. Now, she can't draw to save her life, but painting. She loves colors and creating just these beautiful landscapes. And just most of it was done with a palette knife, as far as I can remember. And so I've been like always in awe of her artwork. And she was the very first one to give me any sort of art coaching. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, around her dining room table, she got me to do a still life of a vase. And I don't think I was very much interested in it. I was more interested in drawing portraits of my favorite people or animals or whatever it was. And as I grew up and started doing school art and joining art classes and things like that, I was just winning the art awards. And I think I took it for granted that I found art so easy. And of course, as a teenager, I wasn't very much interested in art. And I was like, being an artist is like the last thing that I wanted to be, because everyone knows about the starving artist stereotype. And so I was like, no, I want to be a policeman, I want to be a nurse, I want to be a midwife, I want to be a fireman, all these things, basically anything except for being an artist. And finally, I had no idea what I wanted to do and ended up finishing high school and going to a career psychologist. And she recommended that I do psychology. So I tried psychology, hated it, dropped out. And then I was like, you know what? I'm good at art. I need to study something because that's what I was told to do. And so I went to art school and I hated it. It was like fighting tooth and nail. I was like the rebellious teenager, just resentful towards my tutors, wanting to learn things that they weren't willing to teach me. And so eventually I dropped out of art school anyway and moved to Australia and set up my art business at the age of 23. And here I am, 10 years later, still doing my art business. And I think I've now made myself so unemployable that I'm just going to have to keep doing this for the rest of my life.
That's fabulous. Well, you've taken it in so many different avenues in
Yes.
addition to your practice, which we hope to hear about a little later. How did your interest in the wildlife painting develop
Yeah.
from your art interest?
Yeah, so my journey as an actual artist, I have done everything. I have tried everything. And through the process of elimination, I have narrowed down my passion to wildlife and realism. So that happened within probably the first 5 years of me starting to sell my work. So I started selling my work from the age of about 17, and that was pencil-based mediums. So I find that I took that for granted, but my concept and grasp on values and contrast was firmly established in the first few years of my artistic career. So I became very confident in black and white drawings, charcoal, and pencil. And then I was like, well, I need to do some color, because, color is in the art world. So I could find some coloring in pencils. And so everything was more pencil based at the start. And I was doing everything. I was doing portraiture, wildlife, floral, still life. I hated landscapes for some reason, even though I really wanted to do it, because my grandma was just, that's what I was raised with. She just, landscape was just like the epitome of perfect art. And I hated it so much. And I hated still life. And I found portraiture to be just uninteresting. I didn't find any intrigue there, because I considered it to be an area of art that's been so well done by so many artists that I couldn't contribute anything more to that genre. And so I love doing portraiture. I found it very easy. And with pencil mediums, I did it with watercolor, and I was like, okay, I need to do something that's going to challenge me a little bit more. And so come along 2016, I'm living in Cairns, and I had a very good conversation, I think, with a gallery, and they said, look, if you're considering doing painting, do it, because your glass ceiling is much higher with painting mediums versus pencil mediums, and pick something, do it well, and then move on from there, rather than doing all the things really good, rather than mastering the one thing that really just like pushes a brand image and is like, this is your thing. And so obviously I could only do that after having experienced all the different areas and doing all the different parts of the art world. And so I was like, okay, I suck at painting. I haven't done it. Color terrifies me. I know nothing about layers or color theory or mixing or like any of that. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And so I did. I got some acrylic paint, because I didn't have any oils. I had a few acrylics. So I was like, okay, I'll just add a few more acrylics to my collection. I didn't know anything about canvas quality, brush quality, paint pigment load, whatever, any of that. I didn't know anything. I went to the art store. I was like, look, I want to be a good artist. I want to make good paintings. I want to sell them for lots of dollar bucks, and I want them to last. What do I need to do? And they're like, well, buy the best quality stuff. I was like, let's do it. I didn't have any money.
Wow.
The money I had, I spent on good quality art supplies, and then just started making art. And it was mostly commission based. And so once the commissions really started to get more steady, I started to move away from my day job a little bit. And that sort of happened over a few years. And so that's how I got into painting.
That's fascinating to hear that backstory, because it reminds me of so many conversations with inventors, artists, other creative types who
Yeah,
just dive in to their passion and
yeah,
are limited by some vision that has to be perfect to start something, that just
exactly.
to, in a sense,
Yeah,
and you're an inventor, to iterate, to get something out there, to keep playing with it, as you've been doing, to get advice from colleagues and others in the field, and
exactly.
then just going where it takes you, to have that sense of play in your
Mhm.
work. Really interesting to hear. Well, we definitely want to move on to some of your more current work and where you are today. And we're fortunate to have some images and actually a wonderful video clip that we're going to segue to now. And I'm going to bring up and share one stunning example of your work that's going to be connected to a short clip we're going to see. And the portrait here of Vayetzi. Would you just share a little bit about this piece of work, how it
Yeah.
came about, and then we're going to segue to your association with the Kevin Richardson Foundation.
Yes, absolutely. So this painting was actually meant to be a study painting. It was a lead up piece to the main piece, which is actually behind my shoulder, which is a high stakes, I guess, collaboration that I'm doing with the Kevin Richardson Foundation. And so I needed to do like a little warm up piece, which is of Vayetzi, which is one of the lions that is in Kevin's care at his sanctuary in South Africa. And this is from a photograph I took of Vayetzi in South Africa at the sanctuary, and it just captured him so beautifully that I was like, I have to paint this, and I didn't know how I would paint it or what I would do. And I wanted it to be a little bit more free, a little bit more abstracted, so a little bit less detail in the background, and sort of like a loss of detail when it comes to like the legs and the back, and sort of the main focus is on his head. And so we needed this piece as like a way of practicing how we would do the main piece, which is
Mhm.
hopefully going to generate a huge amount of money for his foundation. And so yeah, this piece and the clip that you're going to see next is the story. It's like the warm up, the introduction, sort of like flexing muscles, kind of getting into the groove for this collaboration.
Terrific, terrific. Just a quick word. What's the mission, the goals of the foundation?
So their ultimate goal is rewilding animals and reclaiming land. So they originally have been rescuing lions, which have been either captured, used in circuses,
Hmm.
bred for the canned lion industry, basically just trying to rescue these lions, get them out of being mistreated environments. And unfortunately, lions live, well, not unfortunately, but unfortunately for Kevin, lions live 25 years. And Kevin's like, I'm 50. I can't do this when I'm 75.
Hmm.
And so they are shifting their vision to rewilding. So, for example, a mother cheetah and her cubs run into some trouble, and suddenly the cubs are without a mum. And so what they've done is they've been able to save these cheetahs and raise them in a hands-free environment, which they said is very challenging because cheetah cubs are very cute, but a
Hmm.
hands-free environment so that they don't get attached to
Hmm.
humans and are able to then go and be part of the national park, which they are raising funds to acquire more land for. So they're part of anti-poaching and all those sorts of things.
Hmm.
So they've got a huge vision and they're a great team. Kevin himself is more genuine in person than he is online. It's even though his online presence is phenomenal, and it's just I was blown away by their
Hmm.
team actually, and I'm very honored to be able to support their vision.
Oh, it's a wonderful, wonderful collaboration.
Mm.
Let's enjoy the clip that we have and then continue our conversation.
My name is Carla Grace and I am an Australian-based wildlife artist. I joined Kevin at the sanctuary in March this year, where we took some photos together, and I got to know both him and a few of the lions that he has in his care. We took Vayetzi out on an enrichment walk, and he stopped and he looked at me and he just had the most glorious light across his body. He made eye contact and it was about 1 or 2 seconds. This is the image that I ended up painting. I had to capture him, and I hope that in so doing I have preserved a moment in time with Vayetzi that we wouldn't otherwise be able to immortalize. The original vision I had for this painting was that it would be more of a study, like a warm-up piece, where I would focus on detail in the face and the eyes and the mane, but then the rest would just sort of like blend into the background. However, as I started painting him and really getting to know the form and the structure, I was just taken back by the immense power, but both in the grace and just the self-confidence that he obviously has. And I just ended up getting carried away with it. I was like, this is a major piece, rather than just a study. I am very passionate about allowing a photograph to be a photograph. in that it has all the detail, it has all the light and all the elements that really just like, it's a photograph. And then you allow a painting to be a painting. So you allow yourself to be involved in the painting in terms of you let your brushwork be imperfect and you allow the hand of the artist to be seen through the painting itself. I didn't want to distract from the lion itself. I wanted the painting to sort of become something completely independent of the photograph. And that leads me to the finished painting of Vaietzi, which has a slightly abstracted background as well as grasses that are both detailed and gestural at the same time. It has been an absolute honor to create this portrait of Vaietzi in lead up to a much larger, more complicated and daring painting that I will be putting together for the Kevin Richardson Foundation. If you would like to join me for the entire process from start to finish, please follow me on Instagram. A few of those videos will be posted to my YouTube channel, but that is where the main process will be unfolding. So I look forward to seeing you there, and please say hi because I would love to see what you think of this whole process. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you in the next video.
That is stunning, your work. And it's wonderful to get a little glimpse of the process you undergo. Is that somewhat similar to your approach in general? Do you begin with a sketch? And could you take us through a little bit about how you go from initial idea, maybe a photograph, or to these exquisite pieces of art?
Usually my idea is all in my head to start with, and then I need to piece it together in a physical format for me to be able to visualize it and see whether or not it will work. So my preliminary sketches are usually done on a digital format. I use Procreate on my iPad, and I stitch together things and I add elements and I put other ideas together, and I just sort of create this bizarre Frankenstein image. And then I start to hopefully, I start to bring it together. So once I'm able to put it together in a relatively believable way on my digital format, I'll then just be like, yeah, she'll be all right. And I just sort of just jump in. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I usually won't give up on a painting until it's done. So I did a painting, which you're going to see in the carousel, of images of a white horse. And that particular one, I did 3 times. And that's because it just wasn't working, and it wasn't working, and I wasn't going to give up. And I'm glad that I didn't, because the end result is exactly like how I saw it in my head. So like the piece behind me, that has been put together through 7 different images of lions, which have all got different light sources, and they've got different levels of detail and different ultimate color saturations and chroma. And I'm eventually just putting these pieces together to create a cohesive composition. And over the years, I think this confidence has come from years and years and years of painting and knowing what my limitations are, and sort of knowing how I can test myself. So I understand what I'm capable of doing. So I generally just jump in the deep end and have faith in my ability to stay above water. So the Vaietzi painting ended up being more of a final piece, so a standalone piece in and of itself. And that is also my perfectionism coming out. I couldn't just leave it as a rough sketch. I wanted to see it finished. And it did help in terms of refining my palette choices, the colors that I wanted to use. And so that, in a sense, helped me to streamline the main painting, but at the same time, it was completely different. It didn't help me in any way, because the Vaietzi single portrait was one image to look at, whereas now I'm looking at multiple different images, and I'm having to ignore lighting and recreate things and move it around. So usually it's a jump in and see how you go kind of a process.
Yeah, well, that speaks to a little bit of our earlier conversation of what creative, inventive types tend to do. They don't tend to be held back by, oh, I have to have the perfect image of what my final product is going to be before they start. They do
Yeah.
just jump in like yourself, have that confidence, have that playfulness, and then just trust their ability that eventually takes them to finished products like we're
Yeah.
enjoying right here. And continuing, I think this might have been the painting you were referring
Yes,
to
this is
with
the one.
a few attempts. Could you take us through that, and what first gave you this inspiration, motivation to even undertake this one?
So this is the first piece in what I call a signature series, which is where I push my skills to a whole new level. And I incorporate wildlife into other elements. So I'm pushing a little bit further past what can be captured in a photograph. I don't want to replicate photos. I want to use photos as a tool to create something that is completely unique. So I'm sort of dabbling with imaginative realism in this way. And I wanted this new series to have a monochromatic theme. So the first piece is this one, which is a white on white. So it's overall white scheme. Obviously, there are a whole array of colors in this painting, but they're all subtle and they all work together to create this white, overall white on white tone. And so I had last year or the year before, I had done a sort of like a test of my skills with white and sheet. And I did a painting of a sheet on a line. And that I've sort of held on to that, and now I'm putting it into play in this particular painting, which is actually on my wall over there. So that's why I'm looking on that side. And so this particular piece, I don't have any horses. So I also don't have any bridal drapery. So I wanted this transparent, embroidered, fluid, entrapped feeling almost, but also like this feeling of freedom, but like this, it's a weird balance going on in this. So more of a narrative, more of a conceptual idea to it. And so I had no idea how to put this painting together, but I could see it in my head. And so what I actually did, which is also a bit controversial, is I turned to AI, image generation, just to see if I could put something together. And the images that came out as a result were horrific. The proportions were way off. The fabric didn't make any sense, the folds, but one thing that these AI generated images did is they created a cohesive light and color to the entire image. And so I was like, okay, I can use the light and color from this source, but now I need to find a horse and I need to find the right drapery. Initially, I thought that I was going to be using flowers. So my first couple attempts at this painting were with these huge bunches of flowers in there, and it just wasn't working. It didn't look good. So I painted over these flowers, and the horse itself, the proportions were not right, and the colors weren't right, because I found, so finding a reference image now of a horse, so contacting equine horse photography artists that have horses that are in like a pose that is sort of similar to what I've got in my mind. And some of them, like the first one that I tried, the quality of the image wasn't there, so I didn't have the detail in it, and the colors were like a sickly gray color, and I couldn't get it to be this golden purpley tone. So I painted that, and then I hated it. So then I tried to find more reference, and eventually I found one, and then that's what I ended up using. So then I painted it again. And then the drapery, obviously, the folds, and I changed the folds about 3 or 4 times around the neck. And it was a painful process to watch. And thankfully my followers stuck with me throughout it, because it was just like, hey guys, I'm repainting the drapes again today. And they're like, again? So
That's great. That's great. You bring up, which we unfortunately don't have time to cover, but use of artificial intelligence and just the
yeah.
whole question of how the evolution of technology has impacted your work, the art world, but save that for another time. As I scroll through a few more images in our last 3 to 4 minutes, just want to ask you to comment on some of your other ventures that you have taken in addition to your own artwork. Your tutorials are outstanding. Could you share
Thank you.
just a little bit about that opportunity for viewers and others in the art world?
Yeah, so as I stumbled into the world of painting in 2016, I searched high and low for a tutorial platform that would be able to teach me what I was so desperate to learn, and I couldn't find one. So I decided early on that I would create the tutorial platform that I wish I had access to, which is basically the inside look into the mind of the artist whose work I love. So I wanted to know the thoughts. I wanted to know why. I wanted to know the step-by-step process so that I could take that knowledge and implement it into all other areas. So it's not just about how to paint a lion or how to paint a certain type of bird. It's about how to paint fur, how to adapt that technique and paint more fur, or how to take this particular way of using your brush to create all these different effects. So I'm creating the platform and it's continually growing. Like I've got this it's only in its baby phase right now, and we're looking at hundreds of hours of tutorials right now as it is. So it's going to be a huge platform. And right now I have a subscription offer because I'm constantly putting all this new content on there. It's impossible to continually buy each tutorial. So I was like, that's it. I need it to be accessible, first of all, for people. So there's a monthly subscription, and you can either do the basic one, which is less than $10, or you can do the all access, which gives you access to every single piece of content, all the major tutorials, which are mostly intermediate to advanced at this stage. And I'm starting to bring in more basic beginner lessons in there, which is less than $35, I think it is, something like that. And so it's very affordable. And I wish that I had it. Even when I was at art school, like I wish I had access to that, because then I had the technical knowledge that I needed in order to implement what I wanted to do in the classes, because they weren't teaching that at art school. So this is, my way of encouraging other artists to go do your art, be good at it, because you don't have to go through all those years of hard knocks, because here it is, you can do it.
That's terrific. Well, Carla, unfortunately, I'm really sorry to say that coming to the end of the program, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be here. How can viewers and others continue to follow your work, find out more, possibly get in touch? What are some ways we can list in the credits?
I am accessible through all my social media platforms. So YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, directly through my website, directly through my tutorial site, and by email. I reply. I am very contactable. And so basically just reach out to me. If worst comes to worst, Instagram is probably the easiest platform to contact me through. And then I'll direct you to more formal platforms or channels if we need to discuss further. So my Instagram is Carla_Grace_art. That's where you'll find me.
Wonderful, wonderful. We'll list that and one or two others that you mentioned. And I can definitely affirm that you're very good at getting back in touch. Social media ways, email. So encourage people to do that if they have any inkling. So in closing, thank you again. Continued success with future endeavors. Eagerly look forward to following your work.
Thank you so much, Jay. Thank you for having me.
Also want to thank those of you watching for joining us, and hope you'll be able to tune in next time.